Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about one of the great myths of the classical music world, Glière's Third Symphony, Ilya Muromets, a piece that promises so much more than it seems to deliver. I'm not quite sure why this is true. Well, yeah, actually, I have some ideas. We'll talk about them, but it's been recorded many times, almost never in its original form, one way or another. There are reasons for that. It's a tremendously large piece. It really is. The funny thing about it, though, and here's the thing, it's not really much longer than, say, Mahler 2. Actually, it's shorter than Mahler 2. It's really the same length as like Mahler 7. Like an hour and 10, hour 15, maybe an hour and 20 minutes if you push it. But it sounds like 10 times longer. It is so repetitious and so, I don't know how to describe it. It static. It just doesn't go anywhere, even when it's really moving. But it has the most voluptuous orchestration and gorgeous tunes, and and fabulous climaxes, and it's lavishly scored for a huge orchestra. It should be so wonderful, and yet most of the time it just isn't. It just isn't. And the fault is Glière's, who had no sense of musical timing whatsoever, and no sense of form and structure and drama. It was completely, everything that he did was completely by the book, you may want to say. I happen to think his greatest piece is the Concerto for Coloratura Soprano in Joan Sutherland's performance, because it has no words, and so she doesn't have to pronounce anything, and then she just pours out the tone. It's marvelous, and it's only like 20 minutes long. That's what I want to hear, usually when I want to hear Glière. But the Third Symphony has this fascination. It's hypnotic. It's Russian. It sounds like everything that Borodin and Rimsky-Korsakov and Tchaikovsky wrote, all rolled up into one package, only it's not. So that's the issue. And I'll tell you where the problem started. It's very funny. I was determined to figure out what was going on with this symphony. The first performance I got was the one with Natan Rachlin on Melodia, which was billed as complete, and actually it isn't quite, and some of it's rescored, but that's par for the course. It was a harsh sounding, sort of nasty Melodia recording, and right away we can get rid of all the Russian performances. There are a bunch of them, but they're all cut in one way or another, or rescored one way or another, and miserably recorded in one way or another. We don't have to pay attention to any of them. And then, of course, everyone said, well, you've got to get Hermann Scherchen. Now, Scherchen's was the first complete recording. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. It still sounds pretty darn good, considering it's mono from the early 50s. It was on Westminster originally. This is the reissue that's in that Westminster Legacy box that Universal put out. Now, it's really amazing how decent the sonics are when things are sort of calm and quiet, but they get clogged up at the climaxes and start to sound very, very boxy very, very quickly. The thing about this performance, though, and it's really a very good one, is that the finale goes on for about 27 minutes, which is about 20 minutes longer than it has any right to, in my opinion, but that's another issue. So I said to myself, Hurwitz, you are never going to get to the bottom of this business unless you get the score. Well, I had friends who had the score. A conductor, a friend of mine, had the score. Well, it was about the size of a house and weighed about as much, but you could get it from Kalmus. So I ordered it from Kalmus. And what should show up? But not one score, but 4. You get 4 of the suckers, one for each movement. So let's see what we have here. Here's movement 1. It's like 7 million pages, right? Okay. And it's, it goes on forever. And the movement 1 is marked Pèlerin errant Ilya Muromets a Svyatogor. Okay, so that means is wandering pilgrims. And that's the problem. They wander and wander and wander and wander before this thing gets going. And I'm not going to keep wandering and make this longer than my Wagner video. I mean, it could be very easily. So here it is. But let's just talk about what the piece is written for, the orchestra, because it's extravagant, but it's not absurd. Piccolo, 3 flutes, 3 oboes, English horn, 3 clarinets, bass clarinet, 3 bassoons, contrabassoon, 8 horns, which is Mahler-Strauss size, right? 4 trumpets, 4 trombones, tuba, timpani, triangle, snare drum, cymbals, bass drum, tam-tam, glockenspiel, celesta, 2 harps, and strings. Large, but I mean, we're not talking like Alpine Symphony or Electra or even Mahler 2 or Mahler 3. I mean, Mahler 6. There are many, many bigger works. So that's not the issue. But it takes forever to get going, number one. And there's some strangenesses about it. It encourages people to tinker with the scoring. For example, I can show you, at the end of the first movement, I'm just talking about the percussion parts because, I look at those particularly. At the very end, right here, this is like sort of as it's chuggling along, the triangle and the snare drum are going chugga 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 chugga. Ilya Muromets is galloping along with his buddy here, Svyatogor. And if you look at right there, you'll see where piatti, where the cymbal part is, it's a roll that's forte decrescendo, right? It's just sitting there going forte decrescendo. You saw it? I assume you saw it. I'm hoping. And for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, there's just a cymbal roll with no dynamics. No dynamics anywhere. So what are you supposed to do? You have to either make a crescendo at the end because it goes forte down to piano. Everything else is fortissimo. So what the heck is the point, right? Unless you do something. So most sensible conductors will tinker. They'll fiddle with dynamics and things. And, hence comes the need to play with the thing a little bit. And once you start with this piece, there's no stopping you. I'm telling you. I mean, if you have the Scherchen, you probably have what's closest to the entire whole work, absolutely, totally complete. Now, there are a whole slew of performances that are cut in some way, right? And cut hugely, like in half. I mean, Ormandy did it that way twice. Stokowski did it that way, at least twice. Who knows? There may be some others sitting around out there. Yoav Talmy in the San Diego Symphony did it that way. Big, big, big cuts. Then there are the ones that are allegedly complete, but they may be or they aren't quite. I don't know because I don't have the patience to actually sit through all 4 scores here to find out if a few bars are missing here or there because, to be honest, it makes no difference. It makes no difference because the thing never develops. There's nothing that you're missing if you cut it. So the tendency is to maybe do a little nipping and tucking cleverly. I don't know. But there are some allegedly complete performances that are just boring. The first was the first digital recording with Harold Farberman on Unicorn. It's lethally slow and dull. It really is. Then, Leon Botstein did it for Tellark. That was a total snooze fest, a complete total snooze fest. I mean, it's just been very, very unlucky in that respect. However, there are 3, I have 3 here, besides Scherchen, that I keep around for when I really want to hear Ilya Muromets. And they're good. They're all good in one way or another. And one of them I think is outstanding, and it's quite recent. But anyway, let's start with Edward Downes on Chandos with the BBC Philharmonic. This, when it came out, was the modern stereo digital recording to have. It really was. It was a terrific sound. It was very well played. It was sensibly interpreted at reasonable tempos, and it still sounds very, very good. However, it was out at the same time as the first recording of 2, believe it or not, on Naxos. and that was this one. This one shocked me to death. This is Donald Johannes with the Czechoslovak Radio Symphony Orchestra of Bratislava. This is a great Ilya Muromets. I am not kidding. First of all, the sound may not be as voluptuous as the Chandos recording is. I mean, that was one of those things where, the engineering was that early Naxos, which was digital and decent, but not fabulous. But I got to tell you, it works for this piece because the lean sound of that orchestra gives the music an edge and a clarity, and the climaxes are just exciting as hell. They really, really are. And that's what the piece needs. Even the slow movement, which is right here. This is Solveig the Brigand. This is different, not the same Solveig who sings to Peer Gynt at the end of that piece. That's Solveig the Brigand is not a woman. Solveig the Brigand is a brigand. Unless the Solveig in Peer Gynt was a brigand. Although her name isn't Solveig, it's Solveig or Solve. I don't know. It's something similar. It's a solve something, right? But if you look at this piece, first of all, it starts out with, this Ponticello mysterious forest string thing that goes on for like about 10 years, it seems like. But then this thing, it gets to be, you have to look at it. There it is. It's like harps and glockenspiel and strings and tons of woodwinds doing bird twittery things. And it is so dense and so lush and so rich. You may love it. I find it suffocating. I listen to it and I have trouble breathing, to be honest with you. Not because, it's not wonderful. It'd be great if it only lasted 2 minutes, but it goes on for like 10 or 15 that way. And then all that Ponticello stuff comes back again at the end. And in the middle, Solveig the Brigand, who is famous for screaming at people, screams a couple times. Anyway, that all sounded so much better from Donald Johannes because the orchestra wasn't so thick and heavy. Now, you may like it thick and heavy. That's part of the point of the piece, So, chacun a son goût. Then we get to the third movement, which is this Chez Vladimir Beau Soleil. That's at the palace of Vladimir, the Sun King, the sun thing, sun whatever he is, something with the sun. And that's like 6 or 7 minutes long. And you don't have to cut it. You can actually play the whole thing, and it's gorgeous and beautiful and charming and delightful, and no one ever has a problem with it. So that's fine too. So we have really 2 recordings that we can rely on aside from Scherchen, the original one. We have Downes and we have Johannes. And then just recently, I was shocked to death. You could have knocked me over with a pin. Out came Joanne Falletta with the Buffalo Philharmonic. And this is the one to have. First of all, the finale is 23 minutes instead of 27. I don't know whether it's a little bit, maybe. I don't know. But it's whatever she does, it works. It's not boring, which is an astonishing achievement. The playing here is absolutely first rate. The sonics are terrific. It is the first recording to really challenge Mr. Johannes here. And if you're going to get Glière's third and you want to hear it in the best modern sound with the best playing and an interpretation that actually shapes the piece into something, then Joanne Falletta, she does it. She actually does it. She's my heroine. She is more of a hero. She's more of a hero than Ilya Muromets was. She really is. It's an extraordinary performance. It's just fantastic. And you can see, if we get score number 4 here, how she does it, because, it ends with Ilya being petrified. Here's a trivia question. What other great piece of music has the hero being petrified? Well, there are actually a few, aren't there, where people turn to stone or something like that. In the end, there's Medusa and people like that. But the big one is Die Frau in a Schatten, right? Where wird zur Stein, where the emperor gets turned to stone. But he gets unstonified at the end. So, but there's this, first of all, there's this tremendous climax at the end, which is triple forte, and look at all that percussion, the tam-tam and the bass drum and all that stuff. Whack, crash, bang, it's wonderful. But then the piece has the nerve, after all this time, and all this repetition, this pointless repetition, it ends quietly. Oh, what a letdown. Why couldn't it end with him turning to stone? Crash, bang, thud. It's over. Right? It's kind of like a Strauss tone poem in that respect. Like ein Heldenleben. It should end with the battle. He's victorious. End with that, right? No. He's got to go home. He's got to be disillusioned. He's got to droop around for the next 10 minutes. This does that, only more so. And you have to get through it. You've got to get through it as quickly as you possibly can to get to the end. And that's what Folletta does. And whether she does it by cutting a little here or there or by just playing it faster, I don't care. It works. It works fabulously. So if you're looking for an Ilya Muromets, I recommend, as strongly as I possibly can, first, Donald Johannes. If you don't have it, you should hear it because it gives the music that lean Slavic bite that it just needs. But for the best performance, interpretation, and sound, Joanne Folletta, the Buffalo Philharmonic. Who'd have thunk it? Really amazing, isn't it? And I would say keep on listening, except when you're playing this, you seem like you're never going to stop. And we all need a break once in a while, right? So I'm going to take one now. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this little chat, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And good luck with your Ilya Muromets Symphony.